He called himself Joe, plain and simple, Joe the plumber. Wrench in hand, a smile too wide for his weathered face. He was always there when you needed him, always ready to fix a leak or unclog a drain.
Something about Joe wasn't right. It wasn't just the smile. It was the way he moved, the way he looked at you. His eyes, cold and calculating, seemed to pierce through your very soul, like a predator sizing up its prey. He had a way of making you feel small, insignificant. People invited him into their homes, unaware of the danger they were letting in. Trusted him. Big mistake. They thought he was just a plumber, but he was so much more.
Joe liked the quiet ones best, the ones living alone, easy targets. He could take his time, savor the fear.
He saw the fear in their eyes when he looked at them, a flicker of vulnerability he craved to extinguish. That flicker of vulnerability, it was like a drug to him. He thrived on it. Joe carried two sets of tools, one for pipes, one for other things. The second set was hidden, only brought out when he was sure. His work, he called it, an art form. Each twist of the wrench, each cut of the pipe was a stroke of his brush. He saw beauty in the grotesque, found peace in the silence of death. It was his escape, his release, found peace in the silence of death, the quiet after the storm, the stillness after the struggle. Each house call, a potential masterpiece. Each visit, a new opportunity to create.
Tonight, a new canvas awaited, a new story to tell, a new life to end. A young woman alone, a leaky faucet her only companion. She had no idea what was coming.
Joe smiled, the glint in his eyes reflecting the streetlights, or maybe something more sinister. He could already see the fear in her eyes, or maybe something more sinister. Tonight, he would create. Tonight, he would add another masterpiece to his collection.
The woman Sarah was oblivious, too trusting.
Joe liked that. He fixed the faucet quickly, a practiced hand, a deceptive calm.
Then he struck. A wrench heavy and cold connected with her skull. A dull thud, then silence.
He worked quickly, efficiently, no struggle, no mess. He'd learned from experience. The bathtub, gleaming white, now stained crimson. Her limp body, a grotesque doll he manipulated with ease. The drain gurgled, a hungry maw swallowing the evidence. Joe watched, mesmerized. He felt a thrill, a dark satisfaction. Another masterpiece complete, another soul silenced, another secret buried beneath layers of porcelain and tile. He cleaned up meticulously, a craftsman proud of his work. No trace, no evidence, just the lingering scent of bleach and a silence so profound it was deafening.
Joe smiled. He was good at this. Too good.
The next victim, an old man, never saw it coming. He was just going about his day, unaware of the dark fate that awaited him. The streets were quiet, and the old man felt a false sense of security, a calm before the storm.
Joe, disguised as a friendly face, a helpful hand, lulled him into a false sense of security. He had perfected the art of deception, wearing a mask of kindness that hid his true intentions. The old man, trusting and naive, had no reason to suspect the danger lurking behind that friendly smile. This time, the weapon was different. Joe had used many tools in the past, each chosen with care to suit the occasion. Today, he opted for something simple yet effective. A length of rope, thin and strong. It was perfect for the task at hand, easy to conceal and deadly in its purpose. Joe had practiced with it, knowing exactly how much force to apply.
The old man's eyes bulged, his face turning a sickly purple. He struggled, but the rope was unforgiving. His breaths became shallow, his vision blurred. The realization of his fate dawned on him too late.
Joe watched, emotionless, as life ebbed away. He had seen this many times before, and it no longer stirred any feelings within him. It was just another step in his twisted mission. He felt no remorse, only a cold satisfaction. Each life taken was a victory, a step closer to his ultimate goal. The old man's suffering was just a means to an end. This was his purpose, his calling. Joe believed he was chosen for this, to rid the world of those he deemed unworthy. His determination was unwavering, his resolve unbreakable. To cleanse the world, one life at a time. Each act of violence was a twisted form of justice in his mind. He saw himself as a necessary force, a dark guardian. The body, stiff and cold, wouldn't fit in the bathtub this time. Joe had to think quickly, his mind racing with possibilities. The bathroom, once a place of cleanliness, now a scene of horror. No matter. Joe was resourceful. He had faced challenges before and always found a way. His mind was a labyrinth of dark ideas, each more sinister than the last. He removed a section of the bathroom wall, carefully, expertly. Each tile came off with precision, revealing the hidden space behind. It was a meticulous process, one he had perfected over time. The space behind, dark and cramped, became the old man's tomb. It was a fitting end, a hidden grave for a forgotten soul. Joe placed the body with care, ensuring it would never be found. Tiles replaced, grout smoothed over, a perfect illusion. The bathroom looked untouched, a pristine facade hiding a dark secret. Joe's work was flawless, his deception complete. The old man's cries for help, forever silenced behind a wall of indifference. No one would hear, no one would know. The bathroom, silent and still, held its secret well. Joe, the artist, had struck again. His canvas, the world around him, was filled with his dark creations. Each act of violence was a stroke of his brush, each life taken a part of his masterpiece. His canvas, a macabre tapestry of death and deception. Joe's work was never done, his mission never complete. The world was his gallery, and he was its dark artist, forever creating, forever destroying. The killings escalated. A young couple, their laughter echoing through the house, silenced with brutal efficiency. Joe, a whirlwind of rage and precision, painted the walls red. Their blood, his masterpiece. He dismembered them in the bathtub, the water running red, a grotesque parody of a bubble bath. The pieces, wrapped in plastic, went into contractor bags.
He was a monster, yes, but a meticulous one.
He buried the bags in the backyard, under the cover of darkness. The earth, damp and yielding, accepted his offering. Joe, covered in sweat and blood, felt a surge of exhilaration. He was unstoppable, a force of nature. But even the most careful predator makes mistakes, and Joe, lost in his twisted world of death and delusion, was about to make a fatal one. The fourth victim, a middle-aged woman, fought back. She scratched, she clawed, she screamed. Joe, surprised by her ferocity, panicked. He silenced her, but not before she left her mark. Her nails raked across his face, drawing blood. He cursed, feeling a flicker of fear. It was a new sensation, unwelcome and unsettling.
He had to be more careful. He couldn't afford to get caught.
In his haste, he left behind a crucial piece of evidence. A wrench, his trusty tool, lay forgotten on the bathroom floor. It glinted under the harsh light, a silent testament to the horrors that had transpired. The woman's screams, though silenced, lingered in the air. They whispered through the walls, carried on the wind, a chilling premonition of the darkness that was about to be unveiled. The police, alerted by concerned neighbors, arrived at the woman's house. The door, forced open, revealed a scene of unspeakable horror. The smell of bleach, overpowering, couldn't mask the stench of death. Detective Miller, a grizzled veteran with a haunted look in his eyes, surveyed the scene. He'd seen his share of horrors, but this was different. There was an evil here, a darkness that sent shivers down his spine.
The wrench, lying on the bathroom floor, caught his eye. It was a common tool, but something about it felt off.
He picked it up, the metal cold and heavy in his hand. It felt familiar, like something he'd seen before. He noticed a faint inscription on the handle. Joe's Plumbing. The name meant nothing to him, but it was a start. A thread, however thin, in a tapestry of darkness. The investigation was swift and brutal. Joe, his face bearing the telltale scratches, became the prime suspect. The police wasted no time in zeroing in on him, their instincts honed by years of dealing with criminals. The scratches on his face were just the beginning of a trail that would lead them to uncover a series of horrors. His history, his demeanor, his tools, all pointed to his guilt. Joe had always been a man of few words, his silence often mistaken for shyness. But those who knew him well understood that his quiet nature masked a much darker side. The tools he carried were not just for work, they were instruments of his twisted desires. He was a monster hiding in plain sight. To his neighbors, he was just another face in the crowd, a man who kept to himself. But behind those haunting eyes lay a mind capable of unspeakable acts. The community was in shock, unable to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the monster he truly was. The police closed in on him, their net tightening with each passing day. They conducted surveillance, gathered evidence, and interviewed witnesses. Each piece of the puzzle brought them closer to the truth. The tension was palpable, the sense of impending justice growing stronger with each passing moment. They found the burial site in his backyard, the contractor bags filled with the gruesome remnants of his victims. The evidence was overwhelming. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community, the sheer scale of his crimes becoming horrifyingly clear. The backyard, once a place of mundane activities, had become a graveyard of his dark deeds.
Joe, trapped like a rat, knew the game was up. He made no attempt to escape, no pleas for mercy. He felt a strange sense of relief, a burden lifted. His work was done, his canvas complete. In his twisted mind, he had achieved his masterpiece, and now it was time to face the consequences. The weight of his actions seemed to lift, replaced by a cold acceptance of his fate.
He was apprehended in his workshop, surrounded by pipes and wrenches. The place where he had meticulously planned and executed his crimes now served as the backdrop for his downfall. The tools that once brought him a twisted sense of satisfaction were now evidence of his guilt. The tools of his trade. Each wrench, each pipe told a story of pain and suffering. The workshop, once a place of creation, had become a chamber of horrors. The police carefully cataloged each item, knowing that they held the key to understanding the full extent of Joe's madness, the instruments of his madness. As the police led him away, he looked back at his workshop, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. It was over. And yet in the shadows, something dark and sinister seemed to linger. The nightmare, it seemed, was far from over. The community would never be the same, haunted by the memories of Joe's atrocities. The final chapter of his story had been written, but the scars he left behind would take much longer to heal.